Have you ever heard a story so epic it sounds like a Hollywood blockbuster, but it's actually thousands of years old? It's a tale of a baby in a basket, a prince in a palace, a shepherd in exile, and a prophet who spoke to God. This is the story of Moses, a figure whose life shaped the destiny of an entire people and whose legacy echoes through millennia. From the courts of Pharaoh to the top of a sacred mountain, his journey is one of faith, freedom, and incredible miracles. So grab your popcorn, because we're about to dive into one of the greatest stories ever told. The story begins in ancient Egypt, a land where the descendants of Jacob, the Israelites, were enslaved. The Pharaoh, fearing their growing numbers, issued a terrifying decree. Every newborn Israelite boy was to be thrown into the Nile River. But one mother, Jochebed, couldn't bear to lose her son. She wove a basket out of papyrus reeds, waterproofed it with tar and pitch, and placed her baby inside. With a heavy heart, she set the tiny ark afloat on the river, trusting in a higher power to protect him. His older sister Miriam watched from a distance, her heart pounding. In a twist of fate that could only be divinely orchestrated, the basket floated right to where Pharaoh's own daughter was bathing. She saw the basket, heard the baby's cries, and her heart was moved with compassion. She knew he was one of the Hebrew children, yet she decided to adopt him as her own. Miriam cleverly approached the princess and offered to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby. The princess agreed, and so Moses' own mother was paid to raise him. He was named Moses, which means to draw out, because he was drawn out of the water. He grew up in the splendor of the Egyptian palace, educated as a prince, yet he was an Israelite by blood, a secret that would one day change everything. As a young man, Moses saw the brutal reality of his people's suffering. One day, he witnessed an Egyptian taskmaster viciously beating an Israelite slave. In a moment of rage, Moses intervened and killed the Egyptian, burying him in the sand. He thought his secret was safe, but the next day, he saw two Israelites fighting and tried to break it up. One of them taunted him, "Are you going to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses' heart sank. His secret was out. When Pharaoh heard about it, he sought to kill Moses. Fearing for his life, Moses fled Egypt, leaving behind his life of privilege and becoming a fugitive in the vast, unforgiving desert. He journeyed east to the land of Midian. There, exhausted and alone, he sat by a well. He defended a group of 7 sisters, the daughters of a priest named Jethro, from some aggressive shepherds. In gratitude, Jethro welcomed Moses into his home. Moses ended up staying, marrying one of the daughters, Zipporah, and becoming a shepherd for his father-in-law's flocks. For 40 years, the former prince of Egypt lived a simple, quiet life, wandering the wilderness, learning the ways of the desert. It seemed his past was far behind him, but his true destiny was just beginning to unfold. One day, while tending his flock near Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, Moses saw something extraordinary. A bush was engulfed in flames, yet it wasn't burning up. As he approached to investigate this strange sight, a voice called out to him from the fire, "Moses, Moses." It was the voice of God. He was instructed to remove his sandals, for he was standing on holy ground. God revealed that he had seen the suffering of his people in Egypt and had chosen Moses to be their deliverer. He was to go back to Pharaoh and demand the release of the Israelites. Moses was filled with doubt. Who was he to confront the most powerful ruler on earth? He made excuse after excuse. What if they don't believe me? I'm not a good speaker. God was patient. He gave Moses miraculous signs to perform. His staff would turn into a snake, and his hand to become leprous, and then clean again. To address his fear of public speaking, God appointed his brother Aaron to be his spokesman. Reluctantly, armed with a divine mission and a simple shepherd's staff, Moses agreed. He returned to Egypt to confront the Pharaoh and challenge the might of an empire. Moses and Aaron went before Pharaoh and delivered God's command, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh's heart, He refused and even increased the Israelites' workload, so began a divine showdown. God unleashed a series of 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt, each one a direct challenge to the Egyptian gods. The Nile River turned to blood. Swarms of frogs, gnats, and flies covered the land. Livestock died, people were afflicted with boils, and a terrifying hailstorm of fire and ice rained down. Locusts devoured every green thing, and a profound darkness fell over Egypt for 3 days, a darkness so thick it could be felt. With each plague, Moses repeated the demand, and with each plague, Pharaoh stubbornly refused to relent. The 10th and final plague was the most dreadful. God warned that the firstborn son of every Egyptian household would die. The Israelites, however, were given specific instructions. They were to sacrifice a lamb and smear its blood on the doorposts of their homes. When the angel of death passed through Egypt that night, it would pass over the houses marked with blood. That night, a great cry echoed through Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead, from the firstborn of Pharaoh himself to the firstborn of the prisoner in the dungeon. This event became known as the Passover. Shattered and defeated, Pharaoh finally summoned Moses and begged him and his people to leave Egypt immediately. The Exodus had begun. Hundreds of thousands of Israelites, after 430 years of bondage, left Egypt in a great hurry. They didn't even have time to let their bread rise, carrying unleavened dough with them. But their freedom was almost short-lived. Regretting his decision, Pharaoh and his army, with their powerful chariots, pursued the fleeing Israelites, trapping them against the shores of the Red Sea. With the sea before them and the Egyptian army behind them, the people were terrified. But Moses told them to stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord. Then, one of the most famous miracles in history occurred. Moses stretched his staff out over the water, and a strong east wind blew all night, parting the Red Sea and creating a path of dry land right through the middle. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptian army charged after them into the seabed. Once all the Israelites were safely on the other side, Moses stretched his hand out again. The waters rushed back, closing in on the Egyptian army and drowning them all. The Israelites were truly free. Their journey, however, was far from over. They now faced the vast and desolate Sinai Desert. Life was hard. They ran out of food and water, and the people began to grumble against Moses. But God provided for them miraculously. He sent manna, a bread-like substance, from heaven every morning, and quails in the evening. When they needed water, Moses struck a rock as God commanded, and water gushed out. 3 months into their journey, they arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai. There, amidst thunder, lightning, and a thick cloud, God descended upon the mountain. Moses ascended the mountain to meet with God. He was there for 40 days and 40 nights, receiving the law that would govern the new nation. The centerpiece of this law was the 10 Commandments, inscribed by the very finger of God on 2 stone tablets. These commandments formed the basis of their covenant with God, a moral and ethical code for how to live in relationship with Him and with each other. While Moses was on the mountain, however, the people below grew impatient. They convinced Aaron to build them an idol, a golden calf, which they began to worship. When Moses came down and saw their betrayal, his anger flared. He smashed the stone tablets at the foot of the mountain. After confronting the people, he interceded on their behalf, and God renewed the covenant, carving a new set of tablets. For 40 years, the Israelites wandered in the desert, a consequence of their disbelief and rebellion when they first reached the border of the Promised Land. Scouts sent into the land of Canaan returned with a fearful report of giants, and the people refused to enter. For this lack of faith, that entire generation, except for the faithful spies Joshua and Caleb, was destined to wander until they passed away. Throughout these 4 decades, Moses led them with unwavering patience. He was their judge, their guide, and their intercessor. He taught them God's laws, settled their disputes, and continually reminded them of the covenant they had made. It was a long, arduous journey of transformation, turning a nation of slaves into a people ready to inherit a new land. Finally, the long years of wandering came to an end. The Israelites stood at the edge of the promised land, a new generation ready to enter. But Moses, due to a moment of disobedience earlier in the journey, was not permitted to cross over with them. His work was done. From the top of Mount Nebo, God showed him the entirety of the land of Canaan, the beautiful, fertile country that was the fulfillment of the promise made to Abraham centuries before. He saw the destiny of his people laid out before him. There, on the mountain, at the age of 120, Moses died. He was buried by God in a valley, and to this day, no one knows the exact location of his grave. His legacy, however, is immortal. He was a prophet without equal, a leader who guided his people from slavery to freedom, and the lawgiver who delivered a moral code that has shaped civilizations. His story is a timeless testament to faith, courage, and the power of a divine calling. Thanks for watching our journey through the incredible life of Moses. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more epic tales from history and scripture. Let us know in the comments which part of Moses' story inspires you the most. See you in the next video.